Got my eyes straight ahead, got my head in the game. With the red light on, I'm just waiting for the change. Keep my head down low.
So, of course, we've still got the big drama going on here in Australia where our Prime Minister, alongside, he's teamed up with the Karen that we have, wanting everything banned. If you're under 16, well, then, you can't get on social media platforms. And now they're pushing to have YouTube in with the ban too. And Google is fighting back. Obviously, that's the parent company's Alphabet or something like that. Anyway, but Google are actually pushing back against this ban. Had an article in the paper this morning, and it infuriates me when I see these kinds of articles. They take this one incident and they blame it all on social media. Very sad incident happened. A young person has taken their own lives. And it all gets boiled down to he looked something up on YouTube, or he got some information, and everything escalated from there. If only he didn't have access to YouTube, didn't have access to Facebook, didn't have access to TikTok, well, then everything else would have been good. But that's not the case at all. We're going to watch a video and go through this article. Okay, so first off, father of teen suicide victim demands YouTube join social media ban. Okay, so the father of a boy who used YouTube to research self-harm before taking his own life, says the platform must be included in the country's pioneering under 16 social media ban, despite parent company Google threatening to sue the federal government. In a letter sent to the Communications Minister Anika Wells on Thursday and revealed by the Sunday Mail, Google said it was considering its legal position and could sue the government on constitutional grounds if YouTube was included in the world first ban. Wayne Holdsworth, whose 16-year-old son Mac took his own life in 2023 after being sexually extorted online, says the government should not spare YouTube and must continue to be laser focused on supporting and saving our children. It's all up to the government to save our children. Parents have they don't have to bear any responsibility. It's all up to the government to save the children. What did we do? What did we do hundreds of years ago when you didn't have governments out there able to save children? Children were just summarily killed off or something? Everyone was just left up to their own devices and no one knew how to handle life. How did we live? How did we survive? My boy Mac, he said, used YouTube to Google how to take his life. If he hadn't had that opportunity, he may not have had the knowledge to do what he did. Google should definitely be included in the list. Really? Wow. Sorry, Wayne. This is an extremely sad situation. But you're putting everything down. He was being sexually extorted online, and you're putting all this down, taking his own life, down to he's able to look a few things up on YouTube. So, okay, if he didn't look it up on YouTube, what, he can't use Bing, can't use Google, can't use Firefox, some other search engine to look anything up? Anyway, he goes on. He said he had told Attorney General Michelle Rowland the same thing 2 weeks ago when she visited him. Holdsworth said Google's suggestion the ban was unconstitutional was an absolute joke. Let's just listen to this video. Listen to this video for Albanese talking about this.
Has hinted he is willing to see the tech giant in court if it comes to that. Speaking on the ABC, Anthony Albanese says his government is still considering whether YouTube should be added to the ban, regardless of Google's threat.
When we introduced the legislation on a bipartisan basis last December, we gave 1 year for the process to engage with all of the social media providers, to engage with the community as well, for the e-safety commissioner to look at the issues. That the e-safety commissioner has made clear her view.
She's got concerns
which
about
is she has found that up to 4 in 10 of young people under the age of 16 who've engaged with YouTube have been harmed by that engagement. So her recommendation is very clear, but the Minister will make these assessments, and we'll make these assessments, to be clear, David, independent of any of these threats that are made by the social media companies.
Okay, I've spoken about this issue that we have in Australia, and I think it's a Western world issue, where parents no longer take responsibility for raising their own children. This is an extremely sad story. A young person has taken their own life, but why don't parents take any responsibility anymore for the upbringing, for raising their own children? Okay, I've got a couple of kids. I've got 2 kids. My children had boundaries. There were things that they were allowed to do and they weren't allowed to do. And when I said they weren't allowed to do certain things, I meant they weren't allowed to do the things. My wife and I made a decision. So I was brought up by really strict parents. And I thought about how I wanted to raise my kids when they were really young. And I knew that the benefits of discipline and being strict. However, I did think that I needed to maybe, and this isn't having a go at my parents or anything, but I thought maybe I needed to talk about things a little more with my kids and discuss issues, but I was still going to have very strong boundaries of how they would behave and what we expected of them. Now, when they were growing up, when they were in their teenage years, I remember we had one of the rules that we had was my teenagers weren't allowed to. They were not allowed to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. It just was not allowed. It was said, I remember telling them specifically, you cannot have some kind of boyfriend or girlfriend until you're 18, until you're finished school. Because while you're at high school, you have to focus on your schooling, because we had to talk about what they want to do with their lives, what they want to do career-wise. We'd had to talk about that, discuss that, and so, well, if this is what you want to do, we're going to set goals. We're going to make sure that this is you're on the path with your schooling to reach those goals, and you're not going to be distracted by having a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever. I remember my son coming to me at one point and saying, a couple of mates are going out tonight. He was a teenager. They're going out. What he's doing? They're just going to go out in the street and walk around. And I just said, no. You're not allowed to, because the only thing that happens when you have teenagers just walking the street, nothing good happens. They end up getting into mischief. That's what happens. But I remember telling this story to a work colleague once, and they said to me, "Oh, how did that go down? How were you able to stop your teenager from having a boyfriend or having a girlfriend? How could you possibly do that?" And I just looked at them and said, "Well, I'm the father. I make the rules. I'm not their friend. I'm not there to be chums with them. I'm there to make sure. I'm there to guide them and make sure they grow up, make sure they are raised as decent human beings, and give them the tools so they can make good decisions, healthy decisions. They've said that we've discussed their career paths, where they want to go. So my goal, my agenda was to make sure that they were on that path to achieve their goals. Once they were adults, well, then they've got their own decisions to make. Hopefully, I've given them the tools so that they make decent decisions. Now, my children are very much adults now. They're on their own career path. They're making their own decisions. But I wasn't there to be their friend. I wasn't there to coddle them. I wasn't there to just, so they could just think that I was their best friend all the time and like me. I was there to make sure that they were safe and to raise them safely and to raise children that made good decisions and they weren't putting themselves in harm's way. But we have too many parents now. They don't want to take responsibility for raising their children. I spoke to a teacher, and this teacher was saying, well, it seems like parents want them to raise the children. They want them to take all the responsibility and do all these things that years ago it would have been, well, this is what the parents do, but they want teachers to do these things. Parents don't take responsibilities. And now we have government standing up and saying, oh, we'll take all the responsibility. We'll make all these rules. It's funny how you can only do all these things when it's because everything's digital now. You imagine he said that his child was being sexually extorted. Where was the father? Where was the mother? Your child's being sexually extorted. There's other things that you can do to prevent that. It's not just, yep, YouTube's got to be banned for everyone under 16. You think that's going to prevent it? Something I've seen multiple times, it's not just a one-off, multiple times over the years when I was not even just in the police, outside the police as well. Young people who have taken their lives because they've had a breakup with a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, male and female. Then they've had a breakup, they've taken their own lives. What are you going to do, Prime Minister? Karen, you're going to ban, are you going to come along and say, well, I've seen it happen with 18, 19, 20-year-olds. You're going to ban 20-year-olds from having relationships, from having a broken heart? They haven't been given the tools to be able to make good decisions and see that doing self-harm is not worthwhile. Breaking up with a girlfriend, breaking up with a boyfriend is not worth self-harm. But they haven't been given the tools. They haven't had parents who've been able to sit down and talk. You need to take responsibility. Parents need to take responsibility for raising their own children. The whole spiel about, it takes a village, that is a lie. It doesn't take a village. It takes parents, mother and father working together. It takes a family unit. It doesn't take a village. It's not everyone else's responsibility to raise your child. This gentleman here trying to blame YouTube. Let's be brutal. If he was honest with himself, he could probably look at it and say, you know what? There were probably a lot more times where him, and if there was a mother around, where he let his son down more than just, it's YouTube's fault. But we don't want to take responsibility. That's what the society is. And don't for a second think this they come out, the government comes out and says, the Prime Minister and Karen, well, this is for the safety of the children. This is for your safety. Whenever someone comes out and says, well, it's for your safety, we're only concerned about you, that's why we're doing this, you know very well that there's another agenda going on. You don't think that this is just a way to sneak in other legislation or to get, because everyone has to put in their ID now to prove what your age is, to prove who you are, who's actually watching this, who's doing this. It's just a way of getting everyone's ID to making sure everyone is controlled. This isn't really about the health and the safety of our young children. This is just about government control. That's all it's about. There's a way far bigger picture here. But at the heart of it all, when it comes to stories like this, parents need to take control. Parents need to actually parent, discipline. You're not there to be your child's best friend. That is one of the biggest lies I've ever heard. I've heard it so many times. People say, I'm just my child's best friend. No, you're not, you nufty. You're supposed to be there to train your child in the ways that they should go so they can be a decent human being and live good lives, healthy lives. Maybe if parents were more interested in their children's lives and how they're going to grow up and stop focusing on themselves all the time, maybe we'd have better children. Maybe we wouldn't have all these incidents. Maybe we'd have a better society in general. This is all my opinion. But this is what happens when you dismantle the family unit and you tell everyone that, God's not real. Family unit's not real. Love is love. You can all be whatever you want to be. And discipline, spoil the rod. Sorry, what is it called? Spare the rod, spoil the child. Don't have to worry about that. You're not allowed to discipline anymore. This is what happens when a society turns its back on biblical principles, turns its back on God. That's my opinion. My name's Jay Fallon. Thanks for listening.
Just fuel the desire that will take me higher. I'm on fire because